As Courtney said, I'm a senior professor, former department chair at the Wharton School of Business. Um, we have an executive program here, around 10,000 executives a year come through Wharton. And I'm the director for two of their week-long workshops, one on negotiation and the other on strategic persuasion. Credibility, I mentioned I was going to talk about this for a second, so I just want to put this up here. Another nuanced topic. Credibility we think of as sort of a general concept, but actually research shows there are four legs of a stool of credibility. Number one, do they think you have the right authority to be in the room? So authority helps. Those three-star generals deserve to be in a certain room, and if they don't have 3 stars, they're going to wonder why, other people are going to wonder why they're there instead of the 3-star person. So number one, do they think you have the right authority? That alone is not enough, but it helps. Number two, do they think you know what you're talking about? Are you prepared? Do you have the expertise? Not do you have it, but do they think you have? Very important. I've written a number of books on this subject. Helps when people know I've written a book because they just think maybe I know something. I can prove I'm an idiot very quickly and my credibility goes to zero, but at least for a second, I've got their attention. Number three, do they think you're competent, that you can do it? And that's different than expertise. If I'm going to have surgery, I don't necessarily want the surgeon who wrote a book about it. I want the surgeon who does the surgery 20 times a week to do me. That means they know what they're doing. They know what the variances are. They can handle differences, not just the ideal case. So confidence means the other party needs to know your experience, problems you've solved, companies you started, divisions you've led. So the third leg of the stool, do they think you can do it? And finally, the fourth leg of the stool, trustworthiness. Do they think you can be trusted? And this, of course, is the color in the color TV. Really important. So trustworthiness is another subject that I'm going to pause on for a second. And you notice this is like an onion. We have influence, and that's a big word. Inside influence is credibility. That's a big word. Inside credibility is trust, and that's a big word. But each of these layers gets us deeper and closer to the essence of what's going to trigger cooperation between people. So what about trust? I've worked with the FBI hostage negotiating teams down at Quantico, and they taught me this. Essentially, well, I'll give you a story. So I do a program every year for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They're one of the largest family businesses in America, and the Taylor family owns Enterprise. And I was teaching in their leadership program, and Andy Taylor, who was then the CEO and chairman of the board, interrupted me during the lecture because he was there and there were all these executives. And he said, you know, this trust thing's important, Richard. I wonder if I could offer an example. And I said, sure. So he said that Warren Buffett, that's who we got on the slide here, tried to buy Enterprise some time ago, and they'd had a negotiation, but decided not to do a deal. But they left the table in good order. They didn't do anything to destroy or injure the relationship. They just didn't. They decided no deal was the right deal. So Andy's sitting in his office a few years later, and the phone rings, and it's Warren Buffett. And Andy, a little chit chat, and then finally says, "Well, Warren, what can I do for you?" And Warren Buffett said, we have an annual meeting in Omaha, Nebraska every year, and we have all our shareholders from Berkshire Hathaway come. And this year, we realized there are not going to be enough rental cars in Omaha. There's a number of other events here, and I wondered if you could ship some extra cars so Enterprise locations would have cars that would help our shareholders have, be able to rent cars. And Andy said, I'm sure I can work with you on that. So they hung up the phone. Andy called a bunch of locations, shipped cars to Omaha, Nebraska. Then he called all the locations in Omaha. He said, by the way, well, we're shipping these new cars in. I want you to ask when people rent a car on this weekend, if they're a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder, and if they can show their credential that they are, we're going to give them the best price Enterprise gives anybody. And I just want you to do that. So they did that. The weekend passed, everybody got a car. Andy got a nice little email a couple of days later, thanks from Warren Buffett saying thank you. And by the way, that discount you offered our shareholders was really great, made me look really good. Thanks. So end of episode. Couple months pass, couple more months pass. The phone rings again in Andy Taylor's office, and it's Warren Buffett again. And this time, a little chit chat. And so, Andy says, what can I do for you, Warren? And Warren says, well, I'm hoping today it's something I can do for you. And Andy Taylor said, well, what's that? And he said, well, I've been invited to come on CNBC, which is an American cable channel that does a lot of business work, to come on and give an hour-long presentation on American family-owned businesses. And I told him I'd only do it if you'd come with me and we spend the full hour talking about what a great company Enterprise is. I wonder if you could fit that in. Well, Andy said, I can work with you on that. So what happened in this relationship was categorically different than the usual business relationship. Andy did something uh, to help Warren that Warren didn't even expect or know or even realize he wanted. And then when it came time for reciprocity, Buffett had to come up with something that would delight Andy Taylor in the same way, but would be a surprise and above expectations and really generous. And he waited around until something come up that he could code into that, and he did it. And that's where trust comes from. Trust is relationally generosity. And basically, if you demonstrate you care about the other person's interest, even at a possible cost to your own, even some inconvenience or a different priority, or you don't have to, give an arm and a leg, but just some possible sacrifice, people are going to think about you differently than if you don't do that, if you're always in it for yourself. So just remember these opportunities to do favors, to especially when you're not asking for something, are investments in trust. People are going to think about you in a special way when you show that you're in there to help them, not just in it for yourself.